Looking at our forwards rolls, we can start as low as Seiza, which keeps the impacts low and we can worry less about the other parts of this roll. Simply lower your shoulder down to the mat, make contact, push yourself forward, rolling from shoulder to opposite hip, not over your head. Touching all the way down, pushing forward, and rolling over. We can see that as we're reaching between our knees, the back of our hand can touch our opposite foot, and then we push over. Once we have that, we can then move up to standing, starting from our kneeling position. Touching our hands down and keeping a rigid wheel shape for our arm, pushing forwards, over from shoulder to hip, and ending in that same proud upright position. You can see that back leg pushes and then immediately tucks, keeping those active toes on the mats in order to facilitate standing up, which will come at a later time. Lowering down, touching to the mat, rigid arm, rolling from shoulder to opposite hip, keeping active toes, coming back up. Once more, we can see that leg tucking almost immediately, active toes the entire time. After that, we can take a look at our standing, which is exactly the same as kneeling, except a little bit higher, touching down from shoulder to opposite hip, active toes, but now we stand up and retreat into a stance. Active toes, standing up, pivoting, retreating into a stance. Lowering ourselves down, making contact, rolling from shoulder to opposite hip, rotate, stepping back into stance. Now that looks wonderful, but there's one more thing that we can take a look at, and that's to reintroduce the concept that we started with, which is to have your shoulder touch down to the mat first. You can do this by imagining shooting your arm back through. We want the back of our shoulder to be the first thing that touches, not our pinky. We no longer keep that rigid wheel shape, and instead are rolling through. This makes the roll faster, this makes the roll quieter, this changes the point of impact and can create a much safer roll for your shoulder if you're having any difficulty with those kinds of impacts. We can also take a look at some challenges that we can do with this forward roll. We can start diving over objects. We'll start with something simple, perhaps one of our sandals, a Zori. Try not to move the object that you're diving over. Perhaps we can even take a look at bringing in the assistance of one of our training partners that we saw in our other break-falling videos. Just like the sandal, we're now going to increase a little bit of height, a little bit of movement with that spring. Leg is tucking, landing with active toes, coming up and into a stance. You can even use a slightly taller training partner. Maybe significantly taller training partner. Just more height. Perhaps we have multiple training partners, and we need to dive over a larger distance. This is something that we can look at doing as well. More distance rather than height. Those are our forwards rolls.